I'm still on pattern 166, and you'll see there's an opening. It looks like a little V, but it's just a straight line in the front. It's not cut on fold. There's a seam going down, and you've got a slit at the bottom, and you've got like a slit opening at the top. So to do that, I'm just going to make a sample now because I've got my facings ready. So I'll cut my pattern, add my normal seam allowances, and then I actually take my pattern and put it onto the fabric, and I cut my outside edges. So I'll cut my outside edges. Now this is my normal long piece of fabric, and then I just use my ruler and I guide it in and I cut that off. So I'll use my ruler and draw a line with tailor chalk, and that's my, and I just round it at the bottom. Yeah, you'll see why when I get to the sewing part. But first, my opening is just going to there. So I want to cut my facings with my seam allowances on. So I draw the outside lines. I lift this up. I use my ruler, and on my fabric, I'll just use my tailor's chalk and I'll just slide it in. Okay. And then I've got my two facings. You can put your interfacing on the fabric first and then cut it. Or you can cut your facings in your fabric first, cut your interfacing, and then iron it on. Both ways work, so I've done it that way. So I've cut my center front, and I sew it up to the point where I want my opening. Not too low, not too high, just wherever I like it. So I'll mark it on my actual pattern. On this one, they'll say it's about 15 centimeters long, but measure it on your actual body and see which one you like. So if it's 15, fine. Then I've cut my actual facings longer. So I mark the same opening on this one. Then sew it all the way down to the bottom, and I sew this one all the way down to the end there, and then I just serge around here. Now when you do your facings, my back facing would have been matched up with the shoulder seams, and I can sew it all the way, because at the back I've got a zip, so I will sew these two together, and the same with this, but I won't have the zip in, because then you can easily turn it around. Okay, so I've sewn the bottom bits of my fronts and my shoulder seams together. Then we open this, and you will press this nice and open and flat, and I like to press my seam allowances on this too. So something like this, even if it's just with your hands. And you will do it more precise when you're at home, okay? Not like I'm doing it now, more precise. So we'll press that nice and open. We'll press this one nice and open, and also the seams. Then right sides together, I will put that to there, up to that point, put my pin in there, and I will sew it up to there, all the way around my neckline. That's including the back. Okay, and I do the same with this side. And I will quick. Now of course you won't stitch with a dark color thread, you will stitch with the same color thread. I just did it so that you can see what I'm doing. So I kept my seam allowance as 5/8 or 1.5 centimeters, and I will grade it. Now I like to grade my necklines to 1/4 of an inch, and sometimes I will do 1, depending on the fabric. If you can see through the fabric, I like to, I should take my smaller scissors, but in any case. So I'll do that one first, and I'll do the other one a smidge bigger. Okay, so you've got more time, you'll do more precise. And I will also cut this corners off because I don't want that thickness there, but I won't cut this. And then I'll just turn it. And I'll use my point presser to push that point out. And if I need to cut a little bit more off the corner, I will do that. But if you press it now, that will go nice and flat. See there? Oops. So the back seam all in one. So if you've got this on, it will slightly open it. Now, you can do a top stitching all the way, just like an edge stitching all the way around, depending on the fabric. If you don't want a top stitching there, you can just stitch in the ditch all the way down here, so that it just keeps that flat lying still. But you have to press it first before you do any top stitching. Okay. You can also top stitch on top of this if you want. Sometimes they do that, especially at the back. I don't like to do this. If I use this fabric, this would have been white, so you won't see it. But because I used a darker one, you can actually see it, and it doesn't look very nice. But it's just to show you how my facing is going underneath here, all nice and flat. When we stitch this, you'll see with the top stitching or the edge stitching, it will keep it nice and flat. If you don't do a top stitching, you have to do an understitch. Now, an understitch is on the under fabric, and you're actually stitching on that line there. So after you've pressed it, you stitch it there, just till as far as you can get to the corner here. And the same with this side. But when you stitch it, you actually pull, so making sure that this one is going to the back, that one to the front, and you just stitch it all the way down to there. Now if you look at the bottom there, you'll see there's a little hole. Can you see that? I don't worry about that, because the minute that is closed, nobody sees that, but it makes it fold out very nicely, just to give it a little bit more wriggle room there. Okay, so that's how you do your facing for neckline. It's just got an opening at the top there.